Hello, my name is Randy James Parker Jr., and today I will be presenting my Module 6 final project for EDST 3045-01 Learning Theories. The purpose of this presentation is to cover 6 theories from the course, and these are theories that I believe are the most successful in supporting learners. I'm also going to discuss how each theory impacts my work in the classroom and also what these theories look like in practice within the classroom. I'll also discuss how the different theories can help with lesson plans, interaction, motivation, minorities, and assessment. First, we're going to start with the social cognitive learning theory. And we're going to ask, what is it? And the social cognitive learning theory is essentially learning is a change in mental processes that creates the capacity to demonstrate different behaviors that occur as a result of observing others. How this theory impacts my work in the classroom with lesson plans and activities. So first off, since it involves a social interaction, we're going to have student demonstrations, and these can be a student or a group of students or 2 students demonstrating something to the class, or we could have a teacher demonstrating to the class and the students replicate this demonstration. We also have social interaction, and this is just all students in the classroom, either they're interacting with the teacher or each other or a movie or a game. You want to make sure you're promoting a lot of interaction within the classroom. And then with the multi-age classrooms, this works perfectly, especially if you have students that are older than other students, then they can help with the social interaction with younger students or vice versa. And then with the cognitive modeling, it's definitely you want to think aloud on how this demonstration works and how it can help the students. And with that in turn in planning for the lesson plans, it can help you as an educator think, how can I have a lot of social interaction within my classroom with my students, and how can they benefit from this social interaction? Like we spoke in the prior slide, with the interaction, it could be student to student, social interaction, teacher to student with the cognitive modeling, student independently in a multi-age classroom setting. How this theory impacts my work in the classroom with motivation. Students that use the social cognitive learning theory within their classroom will be rewarded. There'll be mass retention of the media because they are working with others in a social learning environment, and this will spark a lot of creativity. Students will feel comfortable and relaxed in this setting, and they'll be able to spark creative interests that they normally wouldn't in another type of classroom setting. And how this theory impacts minority groups. This will make the students feel like they're in an increased community within the classroom. It's going to increase participation because the student is going to feel relaxed and safe in their environment with their peers and the instructor. It's going to increasing the democratization of students not having to worry about what others are thinking of each other or what they say or do within the classroom. They're going to all be treated the same and equally, and this also increases with the dividends in the classroom of students are going to be able to be who they are, kind of like in the environment at home. And then with this theory, there's many forms of assessment we can cover, and we'll go through the few I have here on the screen. We have the formal professional assessment, and this is involving tests and quizzes that the teacher may hand out for the students to complete. We have the informal assessment, and this involves a student and teacher having a discussion. This can be in a group setting or a one-on-one environment. And then we have the independent assessment in the form of daily journals. A student can kind of create a diary or a journal that they fill out each day in class, and the instructor can review these at the end of each week and then meet with the student one-on-one to discuss the journals. We have the full class roster assessment, where we have a full evaluation of a class in a whole using the social cognitive learning theory. And then we also have finally the evaluation of one grade level to a grade that is higher. So this would be if we took a first grade class and we compared it to the students in a second grade class. Now, the second learning theory we're going to cover today is Vygotsky's social cultural learning theory. And this theory states that thinking develops from the outside in. As children interact with others and hear words around them and observe interactions of others, they internalize language patterns. And one thing to note that's very important is this learning theory can actually begin at home with the parents or family members with the student. How this theory impacts my work in the classroom with lesson plans and activities. First off, as an instructor, you're going to want to do purpose statements. And what these do is, as an instructor and teacher, it's going to help you come up with what is going to be the purpose of the lessons using this theory. How are we going to build on knowledge that students already know from these patterns forming from them hearing from other individuals around them? The input, this is going to be on the end of students providing input and observations that you have seen that can help you develop these lesson plans based on what you think some of your students may already know or have experienced. This is going to involve guided practice, and this is going to be a lot of hand holding with the teacher and the students. And then you have independent practice. This is going to be how, as an instructor, can I come up with lessons that I think students will be able to do on their own, and how the formal building blocks that they already know in language pattern development can be built on even further with these lesson plans and activities. And then at the end, we have the regular practice, review, and integration. And this is going to be taking lesson plans and activities that we know as instructors and teachers that already work, and how we can tweak them and modify them to make them better for students with that pre-foundation in learning in language pattern and literacy already. We're going to talk about how this theory impacts my work in the classroom with interaction. Like we spoke with the prior learning theory, there can be the student interaction, the teacher the student interaction, and then also student works independently, such as homework or homework at home with a parent or family member. And then in the end, we have the student group work. We can have groups of 4, 2, or 3, and students can work together, and their foundations can come together in a whole, and they can also build off that social interaction as well. The motivation that this theory provides in the classroom is cognitive apprenticeship. What this is taking a child that is older than another child and pairing them up and using the literacy and language foundations they both have to compare and contrast and build off of each other's skills and language levels to come to a common goal in the classroom. With retention, a younger student is definitely going to learn a lot more from an older student, and an older student may retain information from a younger student as well using this learning theory in the classroom. And then creativity and increased drive to succeed is increased when students are learning more from older students and younger students, and they feel more safe and comfortable, and this opens up the drive to succeed in the classroom and also at home in their learning environment. How this theory helps minorities in the classroom is, along with other theory, it increases the community, it increases participation, and it also breaks down any roadblocks or boundaries that students may have had in the past or at home, because everyone's going to feel like they're one community no matter what age level they are. And it's also going to help students stand out in their own creative way. And there's many ways to assess a classroom using this learning theory. First, we'll talk about the socially interactive and independent forms along with apprenticeship methods we spoke earlier about. First, we have the formal professional assessment, like we spoke before, tests and quizzes. Then we have the informal assessment, where a student can have a one-on-one discussion with another student with varying ages. And we can also have teacher discussions as well. We have the independent assessment. This can be in the form of homework or daily journals. And then we have, like in the other learning theory, full class roster assessment, where we evaluate the whole class, no matter what their age level is. And then we have the apprenticeship, where evaluation of one grade level to another grade that is higher. And this can be in the form of group work or one-on-one work with two students of varying age levels. The next learning theory we're going to discuss today is the constructivist learning theory. And what this is an active process that occurs when new knowledge and understanding are constructed based on what we already know. So, an important thing to note here is when students come to school, they're already learning so much from their day-to-day life and their home life. So, we want to make sure as educators we're able to build on that strong foundation within the classroom. So, how this theory impacts my work with lesson plans and activities is we're going to want to have an active learning process. This is very important because students are very smart, and especially at the 5 to 7 age range within the classroom, they're going to be very active and they're going to want to be part of an active learning process. So we want to make sure we're making lesson plans and activities that engage an active process. Also, learning as a cognitive process, we want to make sure this process with younger students especially, we're thinking out loud and we're sharing our ideas and ideology with our students through every part of the learning process. And then we also want to know learning is a non-standardized process. So what this means is essentially whatever process works with you that pertains to the learning theory is going to work best for your students. And this means that no students are the same. So how you teach one student may not work for another. So we have to make sure we always appreciate the non-standardized learning process with this theory. And then the last thing we want to know is real learning is meaningful. We want to make sure that when we're instructing these students using this theory through lesson plans and activities, we want it to be meaningful. We want the students to feel like we really, really, really appreciate them and that they matter, because this learning theory is not going to work if we do not respect students and respect what they already know to build on for these skills to develop within the classroom. How this theory impacts my work in the classroom with interaction. You have the student to student. This can involve critical thinking, teacher to student. And this, you might want to know, teacher is not required to enforce a view. So a teacher is not going to say one way is right and one way is wrong if a student says they're familiar with doing something a particular way. A teacher can leave it open-ended for the student to be creative and build on that view. The student independently, using knowledge a student already knows to interact with themselves. So if a student at home likes to read books, then within this classroom setting, they're going to interact with a lot of books and written media and rich text media that may be up in the classroom. How this theory impacts my work in the classroom with motivation. A student is going to feel very empowered, especially if us as an educator give them the building blocks to build on a very rich foundation they have already built from their daily life and their home life. Learning is going to feel like it's at a deeper level for students because they're going to actually be able to dive in deeper into topics they may already be familiar with due to family members or parents teaching at home. A student is going to feel very accomplished when they're building on top of these language and literacy foundations that they already know. They're going to be able to form phrases and sentences that they never knew existed based on key factors of what they already know from home or their daily life. And how this theory is going to help with minority groups is it's going to increase the community. Students are going to be able to communicate with other students more effectively. We're going to increase participation because students are going to be eager to build on the fundamental language and literacy foundations that they already know. And it's also going to help break down any roadblocks or barriers that students may have because they may think they're different, but they're not. They're all individuals and they're both part of this creative process in a whole. And it's also going to help create students to be more creative on their own as an individual in a safe learning environment. Now, the next learning theory we're going to cover is the learning theory of Jerome Bruner. Now, one thing I want to note is that Bruner's work was not known as a learning theory by itself, but his theory shared many basic elements of other popular learning theories, thus making his theory on discovery learning and a pedagogical strategy that it is a must for all types of educators. So, Bruner's theory consists of natural inclination, categories, concepts, simple to complex, whole to part instruction, all concepts at all levels, spiral curriculum, inductive analysis, and discipline inquiry. How this theory impacts my work in the classroom with lesson plans and activities. We want to present a definition of the concept in our lesson plan and what we're trying to accomplish with these students. This is very critical for the educator and for the students. We want them to be able to clearly understand the subject matter and what we're trying to portray out to the students. We want to make sure we present positive examples of the concept in our lesson plan and to the students. And we also want to be able to present negative examples of the concept to ourselves as an educator so we can also self-evaluate if these concepts are going to actually work with this group of students depending on age level and what their prior foundation in the curriculum is. We also want to use guided practice to identify the concept. What this means is we want to make sure that we're using lesson plans and activities that we already know work, but we can modify them for this type of concept or a different age group of children. We also want to make sure we're using independent practice to reinforce concept learning. And what this means is we want to also make sure students work as individuals in this concept and that homework is very important and that journal time and any type of self-reflection within the classroom is very important for a student to achieve the desired effect of these lesson plans and activities. How this theory impacts my work in the classroom with interaction. It's very important that we provide non-examples and ask students to compare to examples in order to note a difference. We want to compare and contrast. We want students to feel like they're actually a part of the content and the subject matter and that they make a difference. We want to ask students to identify the attributes of the concept, like what parts are important to them and how this subject matter helps them in their daily life in the classroom and in group activities and homework. We may ask the students to create a concept map or a graphic organizer at the end of the lesson to describe the concept and ordinate what they learned on what they already knew. We also want to make corrections or additions to students' list of defining attributes. We want to also meet with students and make sure that they're adhering to the subject matter and that they're also retaining the information from the subject matter in a comfortable, safe learning environment. And then how this theory impacts my work in the classroom with minority groups. It increases the community of the classroom. When we're asking students to help with the subject matter and that helps with the development of the class, they're going to feel as they're actually making a difference no matter what age group they are. they like to have a purpose, and they like to be involved in the purpose. It increases participation. Students are going to actively want to work with the teacher and other students on learning as much as they can on this subject matter, no matter what it is, in literacy and language development. It also helps break down any barriers or roadblocks that students may have mentally or physically, because all the students, no matter if they're working individually or as a group, will all be thought as unique, smart learners, and their opinions will always never be taken for granted and will always help with the development of subject matter in literacy and language development. How this theory impacts my work in the classroom with motivation. It's going to definitely reinforce concept learning for individuals. We're going to be able to provide concepts and then have students work on them in a group or individually. And from this, they're going to be able to retain the information because they're going to feel safe and more secure and comfortable working by themselves or with a group with subject matter that they're very familiar with. Positive examples are going to be presented both by students and by the instructor, and in turn, this is going to motivate the student to learn more in the classroom environment. Creativity will be inspired by each concept that is presented with this learning theory with the instructor. Students are going to be able to think on their own and think of their own solutions to problems that an instructor may provide for them to solve. How this theory impacts my work in the classroom in the assessment category is there's a couple ways to do this. We have the socially interactive and independent forms of assessment along with the apprenticeship models as well. We can ask students to create a concept map or a journal, and this can assess what they've learned from the week prior, and we can build on that and review that one-on-one with the student. We have the informal assessment where a teacher may sit the students down in the group and have a teacher discussion. And in this, we can find out a lot of information in a short amount of time from all the students in one discussion. We can use guided practice to identify the concept. We can do a standardized evaluation or project, and the results of this project or evaluation can help us assess how this learning theory is helping with the development of these students at this age level or grade level. We can provide non-examples and ask students to compare to examples in order to note difference. We can come up with activities where students compare and contrast one-on-one or in group, or we could have a teacher ask a class in a whole and have them raise their hands, and we can go one by one and see what they have to say about the subject matter. And then we could also do the formal evaluation of one grade level to a grade that is higher, and this can help us form an accurate evaluation of how one grade is doing with these learning theory concepts opposed to a grade that is higher than the class that we're actually implementing these concepts to. The next learning theory we're going to do is Zubal's theory of meaningful verbal learning. And what this is Zubal's theory states that meaningful verbal learning occurs when new knowledge is received directly from the teacher in a form in which students can receive it. And what this means is students are going to hear a teacher speak, or they're going to present something on a projector or a television, and they're going to be able to understand the content immediately. And how this theory impacts my work in the classroom is with lesson plans and activities is advanced organizers. Us as educators definitely want to be organized, and especially if we're using the Zubal's theory of meaningful verbal learning, we want to make sure that we're very organized with our lectures and curriculum. We want to definitely highlight key points and have bullet points in the subject matter that we want to cover verbally for students within the classroom. And we can do that with our lesson plans and build activities that will be able to initiate this type of learning in the classroom. We want to make sure we show relationships with the content to the students. We want to make sure they feel comfortable with the subject matter, and a good way to do this is take popular topics in a student's everyday life and relate them to the lesson plan activities. And in turn, students are going to easily be able to relate to the subject matter much easier than if it was related to a topic they have no idea about. Along with lesson plans and activities, lectures, they may not be very beneficial to younger students, but we can also have carpet time and group time where instead of activity, we can just formally educate students with a book or a story, or we could show pictures on a dry erase board. And then we want to make sure we do the meta analysis. And what this involves is essentially all the subject matter in the building blocks that a student is going to be exposed to within the classroom. We want to make sure that we're always reviewing to see how the subject matter is retaining the information and make any changes immediately to the lesson plans or the activities that are built based on the lesson plans. How this theory impacts my work in the classroom with interaction. We're going to have student to student interaction, indirect interaction. Teacher to student will be direct instruction. This can be in the form of miniature lectures or demonstrations. Students independently, independent instruction. This involves one-on-one work or group work that breaks off into individual work or homework at home with a parent or family member. And then discovery learning. Discovery learning will be used to increase interaction between students and teachers. And also, students are going to be able to work hands-on on learning information in a very energetic and hands-on learning process. How this theory impacts my work in the classroom with motivation. Students are going to be able to put input into discussions and projects in basic coursework. The putters and the drivers. We're going to be able to tell what students are the ones that really take their time on the subject and others that blast through the subject content with ease. And no matter if a student's a putter or a driver, they're both going to be able to retain the information at a comfortable skill level, which works best for them. And then these students are going to be able to take this information and extend it and apply it to different forms of learning in the classroom with books, movies, drawing, writing. The sky's the limit. And how this theory impacts my work in the classroom with minority groups is when students feel empowered, they're going to increase the community within the classroom. They're going to feel safe, empowered, and be able to work with any student no matter what. We're going to be able to increase participation in the classroom. Students are going to want to raise their hand because they feel confident with the answer that they're going to be able to provide on the subject matter with this learning theory. We're going to be able to get rid of any type of non-binary or students with disabilities. We're going to be able to get rid of any discretion where a student may feel uncomfortable because of a disability or race or cultural background. They're going to feel empowered and they're going to feel like they actually have a purpose, and they're not going to feel like everyone is all eyes on them. They're going to feel as an active, safe, loving community. And how this theory impacts my work in the classroom with the assessment. We have the social, interactive, and independent forms as we've had before. We're going to want to test the student's knowledge with tests and quizzes like prior learning theories have. But we have to also make sure that these tests and quizzes involve subject matter that the students are going to be formally already aware of. We're going to have the informal assessment where a teacher will be able to sit down with a group of students and talk about subject matter that they're familiar with. And then we'll have the independent assessment in the form of daily journals or take-home homework. And then we have the expository teaching where this involves direct one-on-one instruction with the instructor in the classroom in a whole. And then we have the evaluation of one grade level to a grade that is higher, like we've done in the prior learning theories. But it is very important that when we're doing this whole grade level evaluation, we want to make sure that the course content is adequately being presented at the same level, and each student is able to understand the course content even if the grade level is different. The final human learning theory that we're going to cover is the humanistic learning theory. And what it is based on humans are by their very nature evolving. Learning is enhanced when education experiences align with these natural desires. And the goal of education should be to enable each person to develop his or her full potential. And what this essentially means is, as educators, students, no matter what age level or grade they're in, they're going to be eager to learn indirectly. So we have to be able to help with this learning because it's going to happen no matter or what. So how this theory impacts my work in the classroom is with lesson plans and activities is we want to have an empathetic understanding that students want to learn. This is what their natural genetic makeup is as a human, is to learn. And we need to understand that when we're creating lesson plans. We want to respect this. We want to open up a comfortable learning environment within the classroom for students to feel like they can do whatever they need to do to learn. But we also want to respect other students as well with this. And we want to make sure we are providing genuineness or congruence to the students. We want the students to know, as an instructor or a teacher, that we really care about their learning and that we care about the subject matter and that we're very passionate about them retaining this information and growing as a student. And how this theory impacts my work in the classroom with interaction. It's going to provide a non-threatening environment for the students to learn. We're going to have the teacher to student interaction with the cognitive modeling, and this is going to make a student feel even more comfortable and willing to participate because they're going to have a teacher that they know genuinely cares about them and is going to help them learn. And we want to make sure we include the full spectrum of human experience in the educational experience. What this means is that we have to remember these students are humans and that they learn at their own rate, and that popular topics that they may know are essential to bringing into the classroom to help motivate them and promote learning. And subject matter should be relevant to the lives or personal interests of the students. It is very important that, as educators, we keep up on top of what is popular for younger students. Because just bringing in a cartoon character or a popular subject matter that they're very familiar with in their daily life can help boost that spark of interactiveness that we would not be able to get from another subject. And how this theory impacts my work in the classroom with motivation. We want to make sure we provide subject topics that are relevant to the students. And like we spoke before, a cartoon character or a popular topic in social media or on the computer is great to use here for motivation. We want to provide a safe learning environment. When a child feels safe in the learning environment and they feel like they're at home or in their bedroom, then they're going to want to learn and they're going to feel more comfortable to learn. So we want to make sure we're providing that so we have that motivation there. Students have access to the tools they need to learn. This is very important. We want to make sure we have a rich text learning environment for students. We want to make sure they have access to books, pencils, crayons, multimedia television, a great area for them just to relax in the classroom to read these rich textbooks or multimedia. How this theory impacts my work in the classroom with minority groups. This is going to increase the community. It's going to increase participation. It's going to break down any disputes of boundaries or students not feeling a part of the classroom due to a disability or race or culture or sexual orientation. We're going to make sure every student feels like they do at home in a safe environment. And we're going to also provide topics that they're familiar with that will in turn help them feel more safe and be able to act as creative as individuals as they do outside of the classroom. And for this theory, there's many forms of assessment. We definitely want to make sure we're socially interactive, and we want to make sure we provide independent forms that are relevant to the students taking the class. With the formal professional assessment and tests and quizzes, maybe we want to add some cartoons or characters that students are familiar with. If we do this, it can help with the learning, and it ties with the learning theory components, and it might help them remember information that's pertained to a character on a test or quiz. With informal assessments, if a student and teacher are interacting in a lecture and there's a group discussion, we want to make sure, we're making the students laugh with funny things they may know already from social media or the internet. In independent assessment with daily journals or homework. We want to make sure that we're tapping into what a student may already know from the outside world, and we'll make that homework relevant. So, asking a student, write about a cartoon or movie you saw that you really enjoyed in your journal. And then we can go on and evaluate this journal with the student. And then with the full class roster assessment, we can also do the class in a whole in an evaluation with this humanistic approach of a learning theory. And then we have the evaluation of one grade level to a grade that is higher with this humanistic approach in the learning theory. Because we know even though a student may be in first grade and there may be a student in second grade, they're both learning and they're always eager to learn. So that is definitely going to help with the humanistic learning approach. The last thing we want to do is we want to discuss how these theories are connected to what we know of how the brain learns. Carrie's text spoke on how the brain works is connected to learning theories in a variety of ways. But I think the most important part that Carrie mentioned about the human brain is that it works like a movie production. And this was from the Carrie text on page 5. And I believe these learning theories all help complement each step of the learning process for students. And the reason I say this is because, like Carrie mentioned in the text, is when you're filming a movie, there's many steps and many individuals that help with the process of building out this film from start to finish. You have directors, you have planners, you have set coordinators, you have filmers, you have directors of photography. And all those key players help with the development of the movie to the point where we're sitting in the movie theater with our popcorn watching it. And it's the same as in a classroom. We have teaching assistants, we have family members, we have parents, we have grandmas and grandpas, we have books, we have multimedia. These are all different steps of helping mold this child and what they know about literacy and language or any subject matter at discussion, and we help mold that student. So it is very important that when we are creating lesson plans and activities and instructing with these students, that we look at it in a bigger picture, that each little part is like making a movie. And the final movie is when the student graduates high school. And we want to definitely make sure, especially at the younger age levels, that we remember that the humanistic approach of learning never stops. A student is always learning on the school bus ride to and from school, at home, when they're playing video games, and when they're doing homework, and even when they're sitting and listening to a lecture from the teacher in the classroom. We always have to remember that a student is always learning. And here is my works cited page. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation. Have a great day.